So, as I predicted, episode 9, we had the character death of a very important person who is also quite honorable. And that person was Stannis. Not the person, but Stannis the character. Um, and here I thought I was being clever, but I think a lot of you have already said something to that effect in comment sections of other videos and shit, so I still feel like I need to say it. But um, what's up, everybody? This is Game of Thrones Season 5, Episode 9. Uh, so let's talk a little bit about this episode. And I am going to start with this bullshit scene. Um, I'll start with the entire Stannis viewpoint first. Get all of the bullshit out of the way so we can get to actually some pretty decent material in the latter half of this review. So, I just watched the episode about 30, no, more like 15, 20 minutes ago, and I'm still like, like, what the fuck? Because we have officially hit the worst scene to date in Game of Thrones, but I'll get there. Hold on. I know that's what I want to get to, but let's talk a little bit about um, prior to the burning. Um, I would say, the burning. Basically, it's assumed that the 20 men were obviously Ramsay's men who have sabotaged Stannis' forces, which is meaning that Ramsay has succeeded for now, but we didn't have a Bolton point of view in this episode. We had very little um, variety of point of views, but in this case, Stannis is very worried because he's losing men, and he can't march back to Castle Black, and he can't march forward because of the snow and all the crazy shit that's happening to the army. And Davos is um, like, here's the thing about Davos is people think he's a moral compass. Not so much. He's the voice of reason more than he is a moral compass because I mean he says it straight up to Stannis in the beginning. He's like, I have no military experience, but if we're not marching back and we're not marching forward, what the fuck are we doing? So like Davos has a big point, a major point. So I mean, the great thing about Davos is that he's not that literate. He's not that eloquent either. But what he does have is common sense. He has a lot of sense. He has a lot of reasoning, um, just based off experience. Because I believe he was a merchant for just years and a pirate. Um, believe so. Uh, and just that experience overall has just given him a good sense of what is sound and what's not. And you know what? He doesn't buy into Melisandre, and to be honest, I don't fucking blame him. I don't. I think he knows that something's up there. His experience tells him that. Um, and because he's the voice of reason, Stannis had to send him away. Obviously, like I'm sure all of us knew what was coming the second he had Davos sent away. We knew because he would have stopped. He would have been able to convince Stannis to stop, in my opinion. He was able to convince Melisandre, or he was able to convince Stannis to keep Melisandre out of Blackwater, which, by the way, wouldn't have made a damn difference if she had been there, because the strategy for King's Landing was too damn strong. And of course, the Tyrells and Tywin Lannister coming in at the very end was like, yeah. So, um, I think really the next thing to talk about is, yeah, the fact he sent Davos away like an idiot. But I mean, he knew he had to do it because if he was going to go through with this choice, Davos could not have been there because he's not a moral compass. He's the voice of reason. Because what he's doing is unreasonable. It's taking the piss, as English people would say, right? uh, I'm part English, just saying. Um, so, and the whole scene with, Stannis and Shireen was just, it was just painful because she's sitting there like, I'm your daughter, I'll do what I can to help. And he's like, shit. It's like you're just reaffirming what I want to do. And it's just so obvious, so painfully obvious what was gonna happen. And I was just like I knew she was gonna die leading up to the scene. But I just had that hope in the back of my head, like maybe, just maybe, some sense will kick into him while she's fucking screaming bloody murder, and he'll stop it. And he'll like shove Melisandre out of the way and be like, no. But alas, he stands there and watches her burn, which I'm saying again, reaffirming that this is the worst scene in Game of Thrones to date, the show. I know this did not happen in the books. Trust me, I do know. And yes, I do know that it was apparently Martin's idea. However, in context, um, in the books, from what I've read, um, it's not it's not what you think. The fact that it was Martin's idea does not mean it was from Stannis' hand. Um, Likely, if Shireen burns in the book, it will not be by Stannis' hand or by his order. In fact, it'll probably be without his knowledge. Um, so, yeah, this was the worst scene in Game of Thrones. There are very few scenes that I will never watch again, or at least clips of scenes that I will never watch again in Game of Thrones. Number one is Oberyn getting his head smashed in. Every time I rewatch the fight, I watch that entire fight up up to the point where he stabs the mountain into the ground with "You killed her children." Because that fight was actually pretty sick, but I cannot watch that ending. And number two is this scene. I will never watch that again. I could not stand. I thought about taking my headphones off so that I would not be able to hear the screaming, but I endured it. I listened through that entire thing. That I would, saying to myself, I'll listen to it once and I'll watch the whole thing once, but never again. Um, because it's just so, like, of everything that's happened, this is the most brutal thing that's ever happened. Burning a child alive while she literally screams for help from her parents. Like, to me, that is the worst scene. Both brutally and just written, just like, no. Just no. So, I mean, there's not much else to say there. And I mean, I'm pretty. I wouldn't say I'm quite sadistic, but I do have sort of I have a pretty big tolerance for brutalness and violence. But this just was just too much. This was way too much. So yeah, honestly, that's it for that. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent because I'll just talk forever about how Stannis' character is ruined, but Stannis' character was ruined. That's the best I can say. Is his character in the show is ruined. He may still have good moments, but for me as a king, his candidacy is ruined. Absolutely. I do not support Stannis anymore. Um, who do I support for the Iron Throne? Um, I don't know. I really don't know. Jon Snow. Jon Snow is the only answer at this point. Um, Daenerys. I mean, Daenerys could conceivably rule with Tyrion's help as king, as Hand of the King, or queen, Hand of the Queen, but uh, I don't know. Dany, I don't really think is that good right now. But I'm gonna get to her last. So let's briefly talk about Jon Snow because he does have a small part here. Um, Jon Snow, he um, he does bring the wildlings back, and they do open the gate, which I was actually quite nervous that they were not gonna open up the gate and they were gonna like pelt them with arrows and shit, like I don't know, white wedding, even though there's no wedding. Um, I don't know. Anyway, uh, but yeah, so they get through, and Alistair basically says, "You have a good heart, and that's gonna get us all killed." No, that's gonna save you guys, dumb fuck. I think. How is that gonna kill? How is that gonna kill them all? Because when the White Walkers come, they're not gonna turn tail and run. They're gonna fight. They are, because Tormund knows what's up, and they're following Tormund's orders. Basically, they're following his command. Um, I think what Jon Snow did was great. Um, granted, he sealed the wall, and now he wants to bring it back. There is a bit of a contradiction here, but the difference is that they were going to attack. They sealed the wall when they were going to attack. Now they're not going to attack, so now he'll gladly open up the gates. It's not. You don't have to side one way or the other. You don't have to be consistent in that matter. You can you can like you can lock a kid in his room if he's being angry and being violent or whatever. But then when he calms down, you're not just gonna leave him locked in his room. You're eventually gonna have to get him out there because he needs food, etc. That's honestly how I see that scenario. Is like the wildlings are just like violent children that just needed a timeout in that case. Where when they attacked, they sealed up the gate. You ain't getting out of this room until you um, calm down and see, and you're gonna eventually fight for us. And they did, and now they've agreed. Um, because you do have to understand they're people too, and they are willing to fight for the living. That in fact that's their mantra is that they fight for the living, and it doesn't matter who it's for. They fight for the living, and I don't understand why Mance Rayder, being such a jackass that he was. I mean, he was. Granted, I respect Mance Rayder for being true to his convictions. However, there was no reason for all that to go down that way. No reason, because Stannis could have recruited them, and they would have been fighting for the living. Um, but yeah, that's long past done. Anyway, that's it for Jon Snow. Let's talk about Arya, because I believe we just have. Oh, we have. No, let's talk about Dorne, and then we'll talk about Arya, and then we'll talk about Daenerys, because I don't believe we had anything else in this. I don't think we had any other viewpoints in this episode. It's my memory. So we'll talk about Dorne now. So we had Jaime, and I do like the way that this is going because it looks like Jaime and Bronn are going to get out of there alive. However, we still have Ellaria, who is who may potentially do something to Jaime and/or Bronn. So keep an eye out for Ellaria. Um, Dude, Prince Doran, he is awesome. I really like Prince Doran. Um, he sort of has the same sort of mentality as Oberyn, but on a more like princely level, um, which I think is really sick. He basically he understands that you don't screw with the Lannisters unless you're willing to go to war, and he doesn't want to go to war because he sees the children of Dorne, and he doesn't want to put them in hellfire, basically. He understands that war is hell. Um, he must have played the Metal Gear Solid games, right? No, I'm just kidding. Uh, um, so, but Ilaria, like a just dumbass chick, she's going entirely on her feelings and is like, nope, never side with them. We want war. Like, okay, yeah, your lover died. We understand that was an injustice. Look, it's one of the worst scenes in the entire show, as I just pointed out earlier. But Alaria, you cannot. Do you want everybody else in your family to get killed? Because Dorne will not win against Westeros. It's not happening. Um, because I believe Dorne is a part of Essos, right? But I don't know. Maybe it's not because small council shit. I don't know. But if somebody could clear out the geography of Dorne, that would be nice. So yeah, but Alaria, she's just going completely 100% on feelings. Like you don't think that Prince Doran is like devastated that Oberyn's dead? Obviously he is. He made that clear to you, and yet you're still calling for everybody's head. You're not gonna win against freaking King's Landing. It doesn't happen that way. You're gonna get wrecked. All your family's gonna die. You're gonna lose even more, and possibly yourself. So, um, shit, I'm about to sneeze. Trying not to. um, anyway, so yeah, Alari's an idiot, and she swears allegiance to Prince Doran, and he's, basically like, I believe in second chances, but not third, meaning she has one more chance, and if she fucks up again, that's it. So, um, yeah, she has an interesting conversation with Jaime, which kind of seemed out of place, but it just kind of hints at her doing something. I don't know. I guess we'll see next week for that. Let's talk about Arya. Arya, obviously Meryn Trant and Lord Tyrell there. She has nothing against the Tyrells. Because I don't even think she knew about the Tyrells. Because, she left in season 1. Tyrells didn't really come into the picture till season 2 at the end. In which case, she may know the house, but she doesn't really have any beef with them. So, um, but Meryn fucking Trant, uh, she has major beefs with him, as she should. Meryn Trant is fuck him, but um, and now he's a pedophile. Like they're just literally adding on more and more unlikability to Meryn Trant, which can be a good thing if Arya kills him in episode 10, which I think is very likely. But then there's going to be consequences for her from Jaqen Hagar because we just she's not doing what she's supposed to do. But I don't know. Maybe because she takes a life and sends it to the Red God. Um, maybe she has to save a life to do the opposite. Because remember in back in the day, she saved 3 lives. And he said, they must be given. So that's why Jaqen was allowed her to name 3 names to kill, in order to give back to the Red God. So the reverse might also work, but we don't know. It's not quite clear. Um, so yeah, there's not much else to talk about there because they just keep adding on unlikability to him. He's a pedophile and he's an idiot and a bastard and a piece of shit. He beat the crap out of Sansa a few times, right? So she doesn't even know about it. but she's gonna get revenge for that too. So, which is kind of cool. So lastly, let's talk about Daenerys. In my opinion, actually, this was the most interesting part of the episode, which is very rare for her viewpoint to be the interesting part. Um, so since, but I think somewhat since Jorah and Tyrion's viewpoint is collided with Daenerys's, it sort of made it a little bit more interesting. But actually, Dario has grown on me. He's actually become better, in my opinion. I do like the whole scene when he was messing with the quote unquote king. He's messing with that douchebag who ends up getting quote unquote killed. Because there was some shady shit going on. I thought at first that he was like fucking some other girl or something, and then I didn't expect him to actually die here. But if he's not dead, then he's Sons of Harpy. It's There's a chance he was definitely doing something shady. At first I thought he was fucking another chick, but no. If he's still alive, like if that was like an act, then he's like a Sons of Harpy probably, possibly the ringleader. Um, but he's such an asshole. I can't stand that guy. Um, and Tyrion talks him out, or basically verbally beats the crap out of him. So does Dario, and so does Daenerys. Basically, they're like, so this guy is like pissed. He's being a dick. Let's see what else before the actual thing. I mean, yeah, I mentioned about Dario. Jorah. I thought, yeah, Jorah. I mean, he was looking a little pathetic at first, but then at least he redeemed himself at the end by taking out the guy who was considered the champion. Because I mean, his fighting style was so unrefined. I thought he fought more refined than that. Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, that's not a good way to represent a Western sword fighting style because Western sword fighting is not unrefined, unlike a lot of Japanese like samurai wankers might think. Um, I'm sorry. No, I'm not. So yeah, and then we have obviously the epic ass spear throw, in which case he took out his Sons of Harpy and saved Daenerys' life. In which case, like, it was obvious at like that moment where Daenerys is like, all right, this guy's not so bad. Maybe I can trust him. Um, and the whole Sons of Harpy fight I thought was pretty good. Uh, I think choreographically and just overall was pretty good. I really did like Dario's fighting because it really did remind me of like good Eastern influence on a fighting style, which is very rare to see these days, unless you're talking about like Prince of Persia and shit. Um, what else? So yeah, there's that. The whole fight I thought was pretty good, and then of course Drogon coming in was epic. Uh, yeah, Drogon coming in was very epic, and Daenerys fucking rode off on him. That was interesting. Um, I'm not sure what to say about it, other than I mean, it seems like her relationship with Drogon has magically improved. I don't know. Maybe Drogon has just matured from his time away and is like, all right, I like this. I like this chick. She's pretty hot. But wait, she's my mom, so I can't do nothing. But I'm just kidding, y'all. Maybe he has matured. So, uh, what's happening with the other guys though? Are they just gonna? I mean, are the Sons of Harpies aren't dead? So are they just kind of fight their way out or what? Um, that was one of my first thoughts. Is like, if she leaves them, what's gonna happen? Like, I didn't see them all die, so I don't know. Anyway, That's it. I know this has probably been the longest one I've done for Game of Thrones, but I did have to really talk about a couple different things, and I did go off on a few tangents that I didn't expect to. I didn't plan to, at least. This episode, I don't even know what to rate it because number one, we had the worst scene of Game of Thrones, as I've said like 5 times. But we also had some good, worthwhile material that padded it. So I feel like I can't say this was a bad or like even worse episode, but I can't say it was like a great episode. I mean, I guess I could say it was a decent episode overall when you weigh like the bad and the good. I would say decent. Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure, but Stannis. I mean, his character forever ruined, probably in the show at least, not in the books. Please don't get that confused. I know everybody goes batshit over book Stannis. Yeah, everybody goes batshit. Um, I don't read the books, but I do know that book readers go batshit over Stannis. Because that's all they can talk about when it comes to King Candidate. Um, now all he needs is a Magi, and we're good. So yeah, that's it. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all next week for the finale of Game of Thrones Season 5.